Welcome everyone. Welcome in person and welcome on the webinar. I know that in this moment right now, we are going to plant new seeds and embark upon a journey and meet some characters who live inside us. And in this moment, not in the past moment, not in the future that has yet to come, we shall make a decision within ourselves as to which character and whose journey do we want to follow, and what shall happen on this journey. So are you excited? Historians have their job cut out. They like to find timelines for stuff that has happened to humanity, or rather what humanity has done to itself. So the historians are very kind and they keep up with our amazing acts of stupidity, as well as acts of enlightenment and greatness and courage. However, I want to tell you that the Bhagavad Gita is probably timeless, and we shall leave it that way. And as a result, the Bhagavad Gita is relevant to us in this moment, now. And the Bhagavad Gita, a great teaching from India, from the great Vedic sages, tells us in this moment today that each one of us sitting here is split. We are split between that aspect of ourself which lives and dwells and transacts in this empirical reality and seems to then become of that empirical reality and then belong to it, and then probably and ultimately a subject to that empirical reality, a slave even in bondage to that empirical reality. Would you agree? And then there is an aspect of ourselves which is forever free, which is limitless, which cannot be denied because it keeps exerting itself. It keeps questioning this empirical bondage within us. Right within you, you question, do I deserve to be so confused? Do I deserve to be so oppressed? Do I deserve to be shamed? What shall be my freedom? Will hate set me free, or unconditional love? Is pride the right way to go, or humbleness? But nowhere, and definitely not in a sustainable manner, do I find that relief. Why is it so? Because there is a split. And Bhagavad Gita is that beautiful, celestial, divine song of the Lord that shall heal this split. So in this journey, we meet two characters, and both these characters are, guess what, in common parlance, equally stuck. One is stuck to tremendous unexamined hatred, but the other is equally stuck to unexamined affection. One is stuck to pride and vanity, and the other stuck to the need to feel humble and even kind, but unexamined. equally stuck. One is stuck to wanting to do, to act, to take action, to be decisive. And the other is stuck to the perennial confusion to be or not to be, to do or not to do, is paralyzed. One is stuck to their image, their desire to somehow hold on to a throne, whether it rightfully belongs to them or not. The other is stuck to holding on to the entire world and letting go of a throne, even though it was for theirs to hold on to, keep, protect, and preserve. Both are stuck. Both are stuck. And these two stuck characters we are going to explore today, because they come by interesting names. The one who is stuck into hatred, cunningness, manipulation, power games, and a grabbing tendency to women, to power, to lust, to money, to material things, is known as Duryodhana. And the one who is stuck to family and elders and traditions and affection and the burden of carrying this whole world onto his own shoulders is Arjuna. Naturally, we will all vote for Arjuna. I mean, yeah. After all, we fancy ourselves to be noble-hearted spiritual seekers. That's a good choice. Actually, both these characters are in serious need of help. And this is a very unique situation, because most religions tell us it's enough to be good. If you're noble, check, you're religious. If you're pious, you're good. If you take care of your family, you are good. If you worry about the world, you are good. But only Bhagavad-Gita says, if all of that is coming from an unexamined space, if all of that is happening from an unconscious place, then my dear Arjuna, you are stuck. Gotcha. So let's take off those caps of I am holier than thou. Let us begin from the beginning. Let us own these two characters who dwell within us in our own being. Have you, tell me, experienced for no reason anger and hatred and envy at somebody else's rise and glory? Yes or no? Nobody shall look at you. Yes. And have you felt fear, paralysis, confusion, and blame and guilt just because you had to stand up for yourself and the whole world was telling you you should stand up for yourself? God came and told you you should stand up for yourself, but you couldn't because you were feeling this unnecessary affection for the one who abused you. Yes? This is the human dilemma. This is the human dilemma. And there was this one great teaching, the one and only, known as the Bhagavad-Gita, that begins thus. It opens like this. It opens to us to not only recognize the Arjuna within us, the hero within us, who shall ultimately move along and find a mentor and a guide and a teacher, but also to accept the Duryodhana within us. And when this split is healed, we shall find much amazing potential that was awaiting our discovery. So the Bhagavad-Gita is a self-discovery process. And we do have to acquaint ourselves with these characters without shame or guilt. And then find a way to find another self within us, the God self within us, the transcendent self within us, the highest self within us. So therefore, the Bhagavad Gita is a great poem of 700 verses. It is sometimes explained as a great philosophy. Sometimes it is explained as itihas or history, glimpses of historical characters. Sometimes it is extolled or dismissed as mythology. I shall tell you what I think Bhagavad Gita is, dear friends, to my life. It's a rude awakening call. To me, wake up, Shunya. Because when I was born, and this is confession time, I think the Duryodhana was more active and dancing a dance of darkness and blindness within me more than even the Arjuna. But it was at the feet of my teacher that I could laugh at both and say, hey, calm down now, both of you. And instead of staying blind in our attachments to our positions, let me at least open my eyes. And it was a rude wake-up call, because who wants to wake up? Please tell me. It is fun to be asleep in our positions, our judgments, our biases. But these very positions, judgments, and biases, dear students, keep us locked in our suffering. We don't need many people. We can self-destroy ourselves. So therefore, let us not worry about whether this awakening call shall fall upon you with a rude jolt, or shall it come to you with beautiful fragrances and bells and, some violence playing to wake you up. May you have the better version of it. Let me bless that to you. But wake up you shall. Because to remain asleep and to continue to leading a life from a default space of presumptions and assumptions is pretty dangerous. Not only for ourselves, because we live in self-created hells, subjective hells, but for this planet and the world, and of course others. So to wake up to a greater spiritual reality and potential is urgent. And what better way can this urgency be defined than to give the background of a battlefield? And do you know that a dialogue happens between our hero Arjuna and his mentor, his guide, his friend, his guru, Krishna, in almost like suspended animation. Time has stopped. And probably for you too, time has to stop. You have to let go of constantly churning on those concerns that you had been churning upon, and a break has to happen between who you were in terms of your thinking apparatus and who you shall become. This is a time cleaved in the middle of the past and the future. It is right here in this momentous present. And so in a momentous present, which is timeless, that can be given historical dates, but why should we? We can attend to that some other time. Why not in this present moment let us suspend everything else to understand and appreciate a few gems from Bhagavad Gita? Such is the power of Bhagavad Gita that no matter what I prepare to teach you, I teach you something else. Such is the power of Bhagavad Gita. When I think I'm going to cry and break down, I become stronger and a taller version of myself. Such is the power of Bhagavad Gita. When I think that this is how I have to structure things, a spontaneous, unstructured, formless, inexhaustible, indivisible power, then seems to guide me to something else. So I can tell you that I can vouch for the power of the Bhagavad Gita. And I personally, as a human being who was born with the fractured split that affects all of humanity, can tell you that the time comes when the split starts healing just simply by hearing of this knowledge. And a whole different being then lives, dwells, and plays on earth, or whichever loka dimension you plan to play in. Let me know. Are you excited? Jai Ma. Some beings are unteachable. They cannot be taught. Bhagavad Gita clarifies that. So you might realize after this class that you are unteachable, or you might figure out you are teachable. Probably you are teachable because you have voluntarily come to listen to a discourse. So we have these two cousins, Arjuna, the hero, and Duryodhana, the villain. And both of them are prince, and they are engaged in a battle for a throne, the throne of Hastinapur. And how amazing that the evil, villainish Duryodhana had such confidence in his thinking that from the very beginning he plotted and schemed, so much so that he built a house of wax and inflammable material, a beautiful house, and he invited our hero Arjuna and his 4 other brothers, together called Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas, sons of Pandu, to come and be there in that house. You know what he planned to do? He planned to put a matchstick to that house. He wanted to kill his brothers, his cousins. He had come to that level because he didn't want any opposition, anyone claiming the throne, which was rightfully belonging to Arjuna's elder brother. He would have ascended the throne, Yudhisthira. So it belonged to the 5 brothers and their elder brother. I already mentioned last time about various episodes of dice games in which unfairly, with unfair means and through very clever cheating, not only was the wife, the queen of the 5 Kauravas, insulted publicly, almost sexually molested publicly, almost, but for the intervention of a divine force such as Krishna. But they were also banished to live in exile for 12 years. Well, 12 plus 1, 13 years. And then when they came back to ask for their throne, even then, the jealous, envious, lusty, desirous Duryodhana was full of himself to be able to utter a disdainful no. And in spite of all of this, our good-hearted, valued, full of values, in India we say, what a sanskari person he was. Very well valued, full of values, noble-hearted, God-fearing hero Arjuna does not want to kill them in war. Why? Why? Has that happened to you, where you had to stand up and take a stand for what is right, and you couldn't because some unclear strands or threads of attachment glued you to that person. So you became cloudy. You could neither love that person nor reject that person. So they were both stuck. And that stuckedness has a name in Sanskrit. It is called ragaha. You know, music is in music also, in Indian music we say raga. Raga is in English called, what is raga called in English? From music? Melodies. Melody. Sanjay ji, is it melody? Melody. But you know how somebody sings melody and it comes through your ears into your heart, right? And then even when that singing stops, when you walk out of that room, do you see? You're also still singing that melody. Then when you sleep, that melody remains within you, right? So ragaha is a Sanskrit word. It comes from the root word ranj, which means color. So what happened was, when you listen to that ragaha, it colored your consciousness. So if in the classical Indian music is amazing, it's divine, it's unparalleled. So when they sing the ragaha to awaken your senses, all your senses awaken. When they sing the ragaha to make you sleep, you fall asleep. Why? Because that ragaha has entered your being and taken over. And you have actually voluntarily opened all your doors and windows and said, take me. But do you know that something like that is happening also in our relationships? And for no reason, my dear friends and students, we are saying to the ones we love or things that we want, we are saying, here, I shall open all my doors and windows, take me over. Cloud me, bound me. I cannot now even think whether I need you or I don't need you. I don't even have the freedom to figure out if you are serving me or this relationship is not serving me, because I am, for some reason, in a very blind way, in a very unexamined way, caught. I'm caught. So it is not just a psychological preference to have a throne or have a relative in my life. It has become a need. It has become a dependency, and that is known as ragaha. So Duryodhana, the villainous cousin, his ragaha was for even that part of the kingdom called Indraprastha that had been given to Arjuna, and Arjuna would have lived in peace. He said, okay, I don't want the entire kingdom. I'll be happy even with this smaller part of the kingdom called Indraprastha. I want that too. I want it. If I don't have it, I shall not live in peace. It came to this level that our hero said, okay, give me 5 villages, I shall make peace with it. But ragaha for even those 5 villages was so much, he was willing to go to war and put the whole planet through such a huge war that is unthought of. Okay. And our Arjuna's raga was that though I have a cousin and his 99 other brothers who treat me in such a way, and yet I cannot kill him. I cannot go to war with him, because after all, we have grown up together. After all, what I see in the opposite army are my own grandfather, my own uncles, my own other brothers, my own relatives. So killing this one villain I could have probably, but I could possibly not go to war, because in the process I might lose more than I might gain. And with all these kinds of befuddlements and confusions, ultimately he too was gripped over by ragaha. Are you with me? And after ragaha takes over, we are not clear thinking people, are we? And after that, what began was shokaha, or suffering, and krodaha, anger. Why me? Why should I lose something? Self-pity and righteous anger, which ultimately led to the full-blown mental symptom called moha or moha. And moha can be described as delusion, but I shall like to call it the fool's anger, the fool's affection, the fool's loyalty, the fool's love, and even the fool's dharma, where we think we're doing the right thing, but it's only the fool's version of the right thing. Has that happened to us? Where we were so caught up in the love or hatred of something that it triggered all kinds of emotions within us, such as suffering, pity, self-pity, and anger. And then ultimately, it led to a very confused relationship with that object. And then we can, where we should not go to war, such as in Duryodhana's case, he went to war. And in Arjuna's case, where he should have stood up for himself, he did not stand up for himself. So every time when we have abused, when we should not have, there's no reason for abuse. When we abused, we were Duryodhana. And when we took abuse, we were Arjuna. Sit with that. But Krishna taught us neither give abuse nor take abuse. There is another way. So there is another character who's about to enter our story here. It's getting very juicy. But before he comes in, let's explore further. You know, these two characters are almost like propensities within us. These are like traits within us. And basically, Bhagavad Gita, the biggest benefit, one of the biggest benefits of studying the Bhagavad Gita and understanding it beyond the story is to then wake up from our unexamined attachments. So we saw that both of them started out with unexamined attachments, but one of them, Arjuna, attracted some teaching by one of Krishna was like a cousin, or actually a maternal uncle of sorts, similar aged, a maternal uncle. And he attracted teaching from Krishna. Krishna was well known. He was a judicious king. He was a respected mentor. He was a mediator between feuding kings, and he was a wise person. But you see, what happened was that why did Duryodhana not get taught, but Arjuna taught? Because even though Arjuna, our hero, got confused, even at the height of his confusion, he took ownership of his confusion. He did not just blame others constantly. He did not want to only be evil to others. So there was an inherent goodness, an inherent piety, an inherent soulfulness to Arjuna that attracted him, a teacher, that made him an adhikari, or a worthy vessel to receive knowledge. Whereas look what Arjuna did. What Arjuna said was, just before the war was starting, and he was still willing to fight the war because he had taken 13 years to debate on it's the right thing to do, he told Krishna, he said, Krishna, can you take me from where they were standing with their own armies, the good forces, in the middle of the battleground, where I can view both the armies. See, please pay attention. So when we let go of our one comfortable position, and when we dare to take a center position, at that time, when we dare to do that, we survey all our options. And Krishna brought him there in the middle, where he was away from his own cheering army, and he could see the strength of the other army, and more than that, he could see the characters in the other army, they had all grown up together at one time until the throne succession war had broken out. But he stood there in the middle, and so when we come into the middle, we are going to have to now make some paradigm shifts. We are going to go through a lesson. We are going to have to go deep within ourselves and come back with our own unexamined attachments, unnecessary grief and anger, and the fool's delusional propensities or moha that is born as a result of it. Okay? So he came in the middle, and he attracted a teacher such as Krishna. And it's very interesting that look at the difference in the which they talk. Okay? So in chapter 1 itself, in the opening scene, which I shall go verse by verse in the group that goes forward with me, but in the chapter 1 and in the verse 3 itself, the scene opens, the Bhagavad Gita opens, and it begins with Duryodhana. In the third, he looks at Duryodhana, the evil cousin, looks at the vast army of the Kauravas and the strength of the 5 brothers, the invincible warriors, such as Arjuna, Bhima, so he gets a little terrified, because he was being pompous, and he wanted to, we'll go to war, and you come get the throne from me if you dare to, and I shall fight you, and it's full of all kinds of posturing. But interestingly, when we have sinned, a part of us knows we have sinned, and that makes us a coward deep inside. We are fearful. So what he does is, when he looked at the vast army of the 5 Pandava, the good brothers, he walks to their common archery teacher. They had a common archery teacher known as Dronacharya, Acharya Drona. And Acharya Drona had taught very faithfully, very beautifully, the art and skill of archery to both the sets of cousins. How had he known that one day he would have to take sides? And he had not taken sides because he was evil. He had taken sides because he belonged to a kingdom that was supporting the evil prince Duryodhana. So he was just there doing his dharma, his duty. So when he sees the powerful army, he gets nervous, and he walks up to his archery guru, to their common archery guru, and look how he talks. So he says, Pashyatam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyunam Dupadaputrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata Tava Shishyena Dhimata. So here's how he talks. He said, Did you see? Did you see what a vast army has been assembled by your intelligent student, the son of Drupada, who has become the commander-in-chief of the 5 Pandu cousins? Which in essence was saying, way to go, Guruji. Did you know no better than to teach that Drupada's son archery back in 20 years ago? Because did you know no better that one day he'll be standing against us? Class act, Guru. Great, way to go. So this is how he was censoring his guru. He chose the fight. He built up the war. He called for the war cry. He was bloodthirsty. He had almost molested Draupadi. He is the one who was lusting for what did not belong to him. He could not find satisfaction within him. And then when he gets nervous, he wants to put the blame. Is that not what we do? But then look at how he crosses the limit. He goes and puts the blame on his guru. Whereas, let's look at how Arjuna talks to Krishna. Arjuna gets confused when he sees his grandfather and his guru. He says, I would rather let go of this kingdom. I would rather than being the ruler of this earth, I should rather retire in a hermitage. I would rather give up the throne than to kill them, than to hurt them, with one has nurtured me through blood and the other through knowledge. What shall I gain? And such talk he has. And finally, he says to Krishna in the next chapter, chapter 2, verse 7, he says, I have understood that though we are friendly, because they were up till now friendly, we are not friends. You are superior to me in knowledge. Let me be your disciple. Because you can be friends with somebody who is equal in your knowledge. But I am inferior to in knowledge. I am confused. I have karpanya dosha, which means I have confused I have covered up my power, my knowledge, my capacity with smallness and fear. I have collapsed. I have a collapsed being right now. So out of compassion, can you teach me, please? Can you please teach me? And he uses the word, may I be your shishya. Shishya means disciple. So he actually converts a friend into a guru. So he promotes Krishna, who was being his charioteer and advisor, to a mentor. The mentor then becomes his guru. The guru then transforms into Vishnu, avatar, Lord. And then Vishnu reveals Brahman, absolute, nameless, formless reality. So due to Arjuna's willingness to accept, I am faint-hearted, his transparency, I need help, I am confused. And even his affection, which muddled him, but did not convert him into a demonic being. He is an adhikari. He receives the teaching. Do you see how subtle these lessons are? This is not a book which says this is what happens, this is what happens. This is the interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita. And actually Krishna's teachings begin from chapter 2, the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, verse 11. So many great commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, spiritual commentaries, including by Adi Shankaracharya, really begin from chapter 2, verse 11. But I believe that this chapter 1 is very important, and many others also believe it. And I love teaching from this chapter itself, because this is where we meet Duryodhana and Arjuna. And then we are introduced to Krishna, who was at first being the charioteer. He was just driving the chariot of Krishna. How can I help Krishna? How can I help Duryodhana? Their common relative said. And Duryodhana, he had material eyes, material ambitions, material dreams, material aspirations. And he said, can I have your army? Can I have your horses? Can I have your elephants? Can I have your swords? Can I have your treasure? Krishna said, take it. And so too, we do that too. Even when we go to our God, sometimes we say, can I have a Mercedes? Material eyes, a material hole in their soul to be filled with material power. And what does Arjuna seek? Arjuna seeks human support, love, guidance, a friend, a guide at best. Who knew he would find a guru, God, and supreme in that same being? And he said, can I have you by my side? Krishna. So, somewhere a student who is teachable knows they are inborn with that propensity as to what do they value. Many of you have shown up here to value the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, to listen to it, to give yourself an opportunity to fill yourselves with non-material but spiritual treasures. You could have left important jobs, important money-making opportunities. So somewhere a student makes a choice, and then they live with that choice. A student asks for help without projections, without deflection of blame. And a student comes with vinay, comes with humbleness, and says, please take me as a disciple and teach me with your compassion. From your compassion you teach me. So he elicited Krishna's compassion. And then Krishna taught him. But as Krishna teaches Arjuna, humanity gets taught. And Krishna first gives Arjuna, who is caught up in the empirical world, with an empirical intellect, with an empirical concern in this world, here and now, my cousins, my relatives, my teachers, my people, what will happen, what will not happen. Should I leave everything and go? Will that be a better thing to do? What should I do? He gave him empirical imperatives, or empirical motivations to get up and go to war. So he gave empirical counter-arguments, which were enjoining Arjuna to wake up to his dharma of being a warrior, a king, a protector of his people, a brave soldier. And that is what a teacher does in the beginning. A teacher says, wake up, you have hands, you have legs, you need not beg, you can work, you can have self-esteem, you can have respect, you need not be dependent on others. Doesn't a teacher, if you've had a teacher, first they give you empirical strength. And then, so the teacher, in the first 6 chapters, through the science of Karma Yoga, Krishna teaches Arjuna in that suspended time when nothing else was happening but this teaching. Krishna teaches Arjuna about the right attitude to hold within themselves as a soldier, as a warrior, as somebody who has to go to work, and the right action to take. So the whole science of Karma Yoga unfolds in chapter 1 to 6. So it's an empirical teaching. It is a here and now teaching. But when I read it, and I'm an Acharya, I'm a teacher, I'm also a mother, okay? I'm also a citizen of this country who pays taxes. Well, at least my partner pays the taxes and I sign it, where he tells me to. Those teachings come in handy. Because if I do not have the right attitude towards engaging in this world through my actions, I can get overwhelmed, tired, fatigued, irritated, and feeling selfish and broken down. But I started learning about Karma Yoga and 2 kinds of mega attitudes that I can have while engaging in this world through my actions. And what are those 2 mega attitudes that Lord Krishna taught right here in Bhagavad Gita? So he says that when you do any work, whether you're cooking for your son, whether you're teaching your students, whatever work you are doing, you do it with Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, which means you do it as if you are making an offering into the Supreme. totality. It's a joyful offering. And you know, for last 2 months, without stop, I had guests at my home. And every day I felt happier. Every day I felt stronger. Every day I completed all my work. You know why? Because everything I did for them was not for them. Everything I did, it was my joyful bouquet of offering into the totality, divine totality. Because Ishvara is not the name of one God, but Ish means the supreme reality, which is in every particle, which is in everything, every organ, every organism, every living being, every inorganic, organic, everywhere. And so that's one attitude when you offer. Now, prior to that, when I was young and I had to offer even a candy to my sister, it would create a stomachache for me. Let me just tell you. So I am telling you that even if we have to offer more than one candy to a person, we can feel squeezed, small, our survival instincts will take over, and we will start calculating, what did I get? And when will I get back? And is it worth giving or not? But Karma Yoga said, give, because you are limitless. Tap into that limitless attitude and then give, and you shall find you are filled with so much limitless gifts. So I'm giving an example. Then, when you receive as a result of hosting these guests for 2 full months, I received love, affection, all kinds of things. Maybe some gifts. Ishvara Prasada Buddhi, receive as if it is a gift back from the universe. It has come to you, so there is no cosmic mathematics here. So these are some of the teachings that we work upon and we learn from Bhagavad Gita. And so first, Arjuna is taught by his guru Krishna. This Shishya and this Guru talk, and first he gets some empirical teachings that support us in our transactions. Why me? I have students who have problems with their boss. I know people who feel afraid walking into their corporate office. And we have to go back to Karma Yoga Attitude 101. You are not giving your 8 hours, 9 hours to this boss or to this company, which gives you only, this much money. You are giving to the totality. The whole universe has orchestrated for you this opportunity to give and to receive. And as they start giving from this pure place, they start receiving from a pure place. And so if less is received, there is equanimity. If more is received, then also there is equanimity. One does not get arrogant or breaks down as a result. So these beautiful themes are taught. And you would wonder, really? Krishna needs to go to battle, Krishna. Do you really have the time to teach him all this? But this was needed, because when we lose our inner strength and our direction and our calling as to what to do, we have to go back to Karma Yoga ABC, because without Karma Yoga, we are only somehow floating in the very disturbing ocean of emotional problems, and we are only creating what is called karma, which is just actions without any strategy, without any spiritual blessing, without any grace. It's only karma, karma, karma. So guests coming to my home is a great opportunity for Shunya to create a karma hell for herself. But guests coming to my home for 2 months with karma yoga, I am comfortable, my health is good, my friendships have blossomed, my plants are growing, my animals are fed, my profession is doing well, my job is well, the gods are pleased, the planets are on their orbit, and all is well, because with karma we have brought in yoga, the union with what is the highest potential. And as a soldier, as the king who should rightfully, the noble king who should succeed the throne and protect the people of his kingdom. Because if his queen can almost get molested, can you imagine what was happening to the women and the helpless children and the women of that Hastinapur where Duryodhana had claimed his right to that kingdom. And then his brother Dushasana and so many other evil brothers were all there, the 100 of them. What was happening in that kingdom? It was time that Arjuna did not calculate me and mine and what's going to happen to me. He had to move in saying, I am doing this, I'm going to do my duty, and I will offer my best. What shall happen is now for Ishvara, or that supreme reality will bring back to me. You see. So he had to detach. After that, Krishna takes him beyond the empirical plane. And we also at some point in our spiritual journey deserve to go beyond duty and dharma into another sphere, even a more subtler sphere. And it is the sphere of the invisible self. There is a God self which is lying latent within each one of us. And Krishna says that once we discover that self, then we shall attend to the empirical problems. These problems will become minor from this absolute plane. So the microcosm of our day-to-day world, relationships, confusions, doubts, they all become elevated. They become alleviated. They become alleviated. Well, remember, English is my second language, but for Krishna helping me right now here. So, become alleviated. And so this higher plane, Krishna could have just stopped there. But Krishna keeps taking us along a journey and introduces us to the concept of self, why self-realization is important, and the methods to self-realize. So the methods to self-realize come in the middle section, which is from chapter 7 onwards to 12. And in this, we study the teachings of Bhakti Yoga, also Upasana Yoga, meditation, devotion, surrender, how to focus our own mind so that it doesn't distract us from experiencing ourselves, etc. So the methods are taught here. So we, who are also now Arjunas, actually receiving teachings from Krishna via Arjuna, we too learn these methods and become more calm, and we also become more supported, more held, because we are now living in a more focused journey, which is more inwards rather than outwards and distracted and disturbed. And finally, in the last 6 chapters, we are given the greatest and the final knowledge of Jnana Yoga, or the teachings of the self, listening to which we awaken completely and fully and irreversibly. There is no fear of falling asleep, because Jnanam is the knowledge of our own Supreme Self, which is one with God, and listening to that knowledge and contemplating upon it and practicing it in our day-to-day life, in our emotional challenges, it relieves us of all sorrow. So Jnanam is that, or Brahma Vidya is that knowledge which relieves us from human sorrow. So the final teaching comes in the form of the final 6 chapters. And so therefore, one who was unteachable and the other who was not only teachable but he became a willing, deep, ongoing, earnest student, and the journey began all the way from chapter 2. Verse 11, Krishna starts speaking, and he does the maximum speaking in the Bhagavad Gita. And ultimately, the initial disturbance of Arjuna is addressed and resolved at the end. And Arjuna says, I am now ready to do my duty, which is go to war. When I was a child, and when we don't know Bhagavad Gita, we think that Bhagavad Gita is about going to war. How many of you believed in that? Anyone? No? Wow, amazing. Or when you're a child, you think Bhagavad Gita is about, Krishna saying, come on, pick up your Gandiv and go to war. So I had heard this and I thought it's about going to war. But really what it's about is doing the right thing at the right time after due understanding and examination. And if that means going to war, then not losing our courage and our inner understanding, and actually then going to war and coming through victorious. How many of you do you feel have a day-to-day war in your own life today? Please tell me. Then this war is an allegory. This war is an allegory. It is symbolic. And all of it is symbolic. If you look at those 5 brothers also, let's look at their names actually, So, let me just see if I followed my story or I completely went away from it. Okay. The 5 brothers, they are also symbolic. Actually, 5 brothers and 100 evil brothers, villainous brothers, 5 noble brothers, teachable brothers. The eldest, known as Yudhisthira, he is symbolic. He is symbolic of somebody who does nishkama karma or selfless action. Actually, when you look at Yudhisthira's personality, Yudhisthira was somebody who really wanted to uphold dharma. He wanted to do the right thing because it's the right thing, and not for any personal aggrandizement. So he was the hero of karma yoga in our story here. The other brother is Bhima, and Bhima he's upheld as a very strong warrior, very strong, very huge body, very beautiful muscles, great internal strength, external, very strong. And so he represents courage. Okay. Arjuna, why did Krishna talk to Arjuna and not to others? Because Arjuna represents our ability, it is known as vicharashilata, our ability to think, our ability to engage in deeper questions, analysis, and thread through the darkness to find a resolution. So even our ability to think and ask questions and contemplate, even that is a strength. Then Nakul, Nakul means one who does not go through akulta or agitation. So Nakul is being sthira, being non-agitated, even through the difficult war that faces us. And Sahadeva. Sahadeva means the one who has done surrender to Deva, one who is constantly not doing it from a personal ego, but the constant experience of a spiritual presence, an absolute spiritual reality that coexists with this empirical reality. So interestingly, these are only 5 brothers. One who can act selflessly and uphold dharma. The other who is courageous to go through the journey. So if you are that, if you can dare to be a bit selfless in your actions, believe in spiritual courage, accept that we can think through our problems. Actually think. Most of us only feel and react. Do we actually think and use the thinking apparatus called buddhi or intellect to come to some new understandings? Can we use our thinking versus merely beating our chest in anger or sorrow? Can we can we make ourselves less agitated through meditation, etc.? And can all this time constantly remember that though I live in this empirical reality that is closing in on me, there is a higher spiritual reality that I'm going to wake up to. And that there is spiritual presence, there is God, and I am being helped visibly or invisibly. And apparently, these 5 symbolic powers were enough to overcome the 100 evil brothers, each one of them representing evilness. From where? Apparently, the evil brothers have a father known as Dhritarashtra, and he is shown, as I mentioned earlier, to be blind. And so, interestingly, typically when we start our spiritual journey as per Bhagavad Gita, our ego, which is the king, is also blind. And it gives birth to 100 evil tendencies. 100 evil tendencies. And each tendency just wants, grabs, and calculates that, am I going to lose 5 villages? Should I have a cow now? Should I behave like a abandoned person? Should I go and fight any kind of battles for what is worthy or what is unworthy? I mean, Duryodhana could have just lived with his own kingdom. His father had divided it up, saying, okay, you 100, you rule Hastinapur. These 5 can rule Indraprastha. He could have just lived like that, but it was not enough for him. Why? Because wants. And that's how typically our ego is. So therefore, the king, who could have given justice but could not give justice, because another divine justice is required, which requires the expansion of our thinking from this very narrow, worldly, material thinking to a more spiritual thinking. And these 5 qualities of these 5 brothers represents just 5 seeds of more thoughtful, more mindful, more spiritual, more conscious values and beliefs that we can embody within the mind, but a higher mind known as buddhi or the intellect.
So are these 5, can they be senses? Are they 5 senses?
No. So this is where I was coming to. So the human being, each one of us, the human being, we're leaving the spirit out of it just for now. The human being, the functioning human being, the being born and dying human being is known as jiva. The human being is divided up into 3 empirical parts. The body, sharira, the mind, manas, and the intellect known as buddhi. Okay? And the body has located within the body. We all need a body because this body is very important, because in it is located 10 sense organs. 5 are organs of sensory perception and 5 are organs of action. So organs of sensory perception are what? What? Eyes, nose, tongue, and those 5. And the 5 organs of action are like hands, legs, reproductive organs, elimination organ, and organ of speech. So this mouth is interesting. It also creates karma by speech, and it also tastes. So mouth goes in both the places. These 10 organs, they live in the body. And so the 5 sensory organs receive the world, right? And they give the information to the mind. And the mind refers it back to a higher level mental functioning. It's all made up of thoughts, but it's a higher level mental functioning called buddhi or the intellect. And the intellect then says, do this, don't do that, eat this, don't eat that, go there, don't go there. Then the mind goes back to the motor organs and says to the legs, don't go to Acharya Shunya, she only looks really calm, but she's not a very pleasant teacher. Stay away. So the legs move back. Okay? So it's like the buddhi is deciding how much distance to keep with the teacher, where to sit, what not. It's just a funny example. But it's like that, right? Now, so the buddhi is, I had explained last time that in the mind, thoughts are just coming like a river, and they're at the level of sensations, feelings, perceptions, they're raw. But then the intellect is where they are becoming more decisive, nischayatmaka buddhi. So based on past experience, memory, etc., it gives a order. And then the motor organs play it out. Okay, all good? So the sense organs actually feed into the mind talks to the intellect gives back the direction to the mind goes and talks to the motor organs, and the motor organs do accordingly, such as they will use the hands to eat, to bless someone or to slap someone, because based on what the intellect told. Or they will use the legs to walk towards buying drugs, or they will walk back from not buying the drugs, right? So this is based on the intellect. Now, the intellect is of two kinds. The intellect itself can be sthula or sukshma, gross or subtle. Now, when it is gross intellect, it can help us understand some basic functionings, and we can get by in life. We can entertain ourselves, we can earn some money, we can complete some purusharthas like artha and kama. But it is only when our subtle intellect is awakened through interface with divine teachings, with a spiritual teacher, that our higher abilities of dharma and of moksha or self-realization awaken within us. Most of the time, unfortunately though, as it begins with Duryodhana, do you think Duryodhana had any intellect working for him? Probably, in his own way, he was seeking entertainment by molesting a queen, respectable queen. He was seeking, survival by wanting more and more kingdoms. So ideally, the intellect is supposed to help us, but sometimes the intellect can get so corrupted by mental qualities of rajas and tamas, which is agitation and heaviness, and depression and ignorance, that the intellect is not supporting us. So we call it buddhi bhramsha, or we call it a blind intellect, or we call it like it's an intellect but is as good as no use. So have you heard an alcoholic or a drug addict say, I know everything. Yeah, don't tell me Shunya ji, I don't want to know about Ayurveda, Yoga, Vedanta. I know everything, I shall teach you, come sit with me. Have you heard people like that? They are full of, I know it, but do they know? So probably at that level, when that happens to us, it can happen to us, our intellect has fallen asleep, or it has become corrupted. The hard drive has become corrupted. And at that time, it's just the senses. They bring in the smell of the alcohol. The mind says, I deserve alcohol. After all, my mother-in-law is nowadays visiting, so I should get drunk. And it gives itself a reason to get drunk, and it gets drunk. See, mother-in-law, poor thing, was just watching Oprah Winfrey on TV. Leave her alone. She's not telling you to get drunk, but the mind justifies. And so the intellect has become so corrupted, we don't even want to use it. So at that time, the person becomes a self-destructive monster. The person is self-fulfilling negative prophecies. The person doesn't need anybody to hurt them. They hurt themselves. The person becomes a victim, an aggressor, becomes confused, disturbs relationships, and even does substance abuse, hurts the planet, hurts the environment, and God forbid if such people are in like important, powerful political positions, then also we are in a bit of a quandary. Because then the person may just, use tweets or social media. So, it's an example. So we had a blind king, Dhritarashtra, in timelessness, and we have sometimes blind, government officials who are in similar situation where they are blind because they don't have help from their intellect. And so what Bhagavad Gita does, and these teachings do over these next 17 chapters is it expands the intellect and it opens the intellect to its subtle propensities, and thereby the mind becomes our friend rather than being our enemy. The whole mental apparatus becomes our friend. So it's highly symbolic. So the battle is not really outside, but it is within. Bhagavad Gita invites you to understand that there is an ongoing battle between that which is deathless, which is yourself, eternal, nitya, and that which is perishable, the body and the mind, which is anitya. Bhagavad Gita invites you to look at the battle between what is the ultimate absolute reality, Satyam or Brahman, and what is this, what we see and we conjure a reality, you see. In the same room, if there are, some 70 people here and another 70 on the webinar or more, I don't know, each person is looking into the same reality, but based upon their mental apparatus and their intellect, they are conjuring their own realities. Do you see? So these are subjective realities. And so there is a battle between subjective reality, what we think is the reality, and what is the reality, that we are really one, though we experience separation. Okay? There is a battle going on between our own viveka, or our own ability to discern between right and wrong, between what is beneficial and non-beneficial, versus moha, which is that foolish, remember, foolish delusional attachment to how things should be. So there is a battle that is going on between truth and untruth that we tell ourselves. So therefore, there is all these battles, and Bhagavad Gita says, let's look at it. Let us not remain stuck and act from that stuckedness. And how interesting. Because it was so easy to say, don't act like Duryodhana, don't be selfish, be selfless. And look, our hero Arjuna was being so selfless, he was willing to give his kingdom and everything to his evil king. Height of selflessness, don't you think so? But who are you giving the kingdom to? Is that selflessness, or is that escapism? Thank you. And so now I come to the next part, when each one of us, and this Bhagavad Gita says, that it is not the outer circumstance which is the problem. It is how we interpret that outer circumstance, and then we make it, oh, this circumstance is giving me sorrow or joy. For example, when something happens in our life, one person could make it a big deal. We brought up the issue of the mother-in-law, so we'll keep it up and we'll say, oh, my mother-in-law is visiting, or my mother-in-law is demanding, or my mother-in-law is critical, so all hell has broken loose. Another person can say, my mother-in-law is demanding and she is critical. It looks like that's the only experience she's had in life. Let me love her some more. Let me take her on a picnic. I think she deserves a break from herself. See? Two different responses. So is the mother-in-law the cause of joy or sorrow? Or is it us and our interpretation of it that causes the joy or sorrow? So this gets revealed in Bhagavad Gita. And typically what Bhagavad Gita says is that when a difficult situation comes in front of us, we all have three reactions typically. The first one is escape. I just want to not deal with it like Arjuna was doing. Let me escape from it. So one is escape. It's a flat out escape. Whether it is your elevated cholesterol, you want to escape from it. Whether it is, whatever it is, you want to escape it. The other one is we want to force fix it to the way we want to see it. So we will lose all our health and our well-being in trying to contort it. So we had an image of a mother-in-law from a story we had read of this, this mother-in-law who kind of, walk 6 inches above the earth, and she came and said, "Thank you for marrying my daughter," and and all that unimaginable mother-in-law. And we had this imagination. So now we're going to take the mother-in-law we have and just force fit her to be this. Do you see that? So we spend all our time manipulating what is real in the present moment, because it's almost like boxing, but we're losing our energy, disturbing our doshas, disturbing our ojas in the process. Okay. And the third one is, when we can neither escape it, nor can we manipulate it to change, then what do? We talk about it. And when we talk about it, there is this slant of self-pity, piratmak, sorrow. We're like, well, yeah. But there's always this sense of lamentation, this justified talk about your sorrowfuls. So we build it. And we seek validation of our suffering. Like how we're stuck, and we seek it. Anybody wants to leave? Okay. So remember when I said it's a rude wake-up call? That's why. It makes us take responsibility. But I like it, because I would like to talk about it, but then often when I was practicing Bhagavad Gita, you practice Bhagavad Gita. So when you're practicing the Gita, you're lamenting, and you catch yourself and say, wait, I can hold it in. I can hold it in. This goes with another sadhana that we teach here in Advaita Vedanta called Titiksha. And Titiksha, it's a very beautiful teaching. It says, when a difficult problem comes, bear it and don't talk about it. It's a great one. Because when you bear it and you don't talk about it on top of that, because if you bear it but talk about it, it weakens you. So, if you see Arjuna, first he tried to escape. First he tries to completely escape, Then he tries to fix it. We will discuss this in chapter as we go verse by verse. Then he tries to change how it looks. He starts doing what's called as plea bargaining around it. And then finally he gets into just a lament. Why me? Why do I have to kill my grandfather and my guru in that? Why me? Why do I have to deal with this? So he just starts lamenting. So all three things are there. But then what Krishna says is, look, these are your three default options. But here, let me pick you up from your stuck, empirical, scared space and show you who you really are. And when that false, substanceless smallness that has befallen each one of us is revealed to us, when I realize I need not be ashamed, I am not ashamed. When I realize I need not be apologetic for who I am, that I am not apologetic. So when I am revealed the frivolousness of the indulgence of my smallness and my real nature that is inexhaustibly big, in fact, it is not only big, but it is one with the absolute reality, Brahman. And in fact, in Chandogya Upanishad, there is a whole teaching of Tat Tvamasi. Tat means that. Tvam means you. Asi means are. You are that. You is equal to that. That is equal to you. It ends with that. So we begin with this good-hearted, noble-hearted being crushed by his own blood relatives. slowly finding that they are not his relatives. This story of my relatives, your relatives, they're all stories. When he went to that level of bigness, then he realized that these are all characters. There is only one God everywhere. And suppose, I remember my teacher telling me, suppose Shunya, God comes to you and gives you a hard time. It's still God. All he wants you to say is stand up for yourself and say, don't do it. Don't be scared of God. And if God came and seduced you, don't lose your dignity to God. It's just God. God is everywhere. These are all characters. It's a dharma kshetra. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. Samaveta yuyutsavaha. Mamaka pandavascheva. Kim kurvat sanjaya. This is the first verse of this grand 700-verse poetry, which begins with this blind, egotistic king Dhritarashtra asking his charioteer Sanjay, his person who had the power to look into what was happening in the battlefield. And he asked a small question, really small question. And you know how it is small. Bhagavad Gita begins with a question mark by the ego, by the blind king saying, oh, all the warriors have enthusiastically collected on that battlefield called Kurukshetra, which is also the field of dharma. He knew it. And he says, how did my boys do? Mine. Mamaka. See, he had raised Pandu's children because those 5 boys had lost their father early. He could have said, how are the children doing? Oh my God, they are fighting. No, he says, in the critical moment, the man who had to give justice, he sits there and says, how did my boys do? Versus Pandu's sons. So he had already done me and mine. Kim kurvat Sanjaya. Tell me, Sanjay. Sanjay was the name of the narrator who is looking, who has divine sight, the author Vyasa has given him to look and tell. So such a small, it starts with this one verse, this blind king gets and asks, and then Sanjaya tells the story, and Sanjaya Uvacha, and he tells the story, and in which Arjuna Uvacha, Arjuna talks, then Bhagavan Uvacha, Krishna talks. And at the very end, we come to this conclusion that in any time when there are students like Krishna, Arjuna, and teachers like Krishna, then only truth and peace shall prevail. Because as long as this parampara, a tradition of a discourse that does not leave us small from where we began, but expands us and opens us to our potential, and makes us take the ultimate responsibility, not just the responsibility for my grandfather and my uncle, but it makes us take the ultimate responsibility for the protection of Satyam and Dharma in this universe. Then we become free to act. And we can do that once we recognize that we may have relatives, etc., but we are not of them. This is all what is known as Leela. It has all been pre-manufactured. It is a setup. And what happens is we get lost in that setup. I, as a teacher itself right now, can get lost in the setup of my students, not my students, senior students, junior students, and all kinds of teacher politics can begin right here. Instead, when I show up as a teacher, due to Bhagavad Gita, I remember that I am only playing a role, and who is speaking to me through me is Supreme Reality, and who is hearing is Supreme Reality, who is making this happen is Supreme Reality. Then all I have to do is do my work in the proper way, do my duty, do my dharma, and leave the fruits of my action to that Supreme Reality. So therefore, we have taken things a bit too personally, I will say, and collapsed ourselves into very small, tiny relationship webs and construed a story of oppression and aggression, and either is not okay. And of course, in this Bhagavad Gita, Duryodhana was unteachable. The unteachable self-destroy themselves. So he destroyed himself, he destroyed his kingdom, he destroyed all his brothers died, his parents died a living death. He was unrepentant till the last, and probably still unrepentant somewhere in the samsaric wheel. Probably got a Vedika flyer to come to Bhagavad Gita, but said, I'm not going to that one. So one day, if the Duryodhana is more awake within you, at least we can try to become Arjuna and openly accept that I need help. And if the Arjuna has already brought you here, then stay through that journey, verse by verse, I would say, or wherever you get the opportunity, once in this lifetime, if possible, and complete it. Because that is the invitation. So who composed Bhagavad Gita? Who composed Bhagavad Gita is a teacher known as Vyasa Acharya, Acharya Vyasa. He's known as also Krishna Dvaipayan. And there is, he's a character in the Mahabharata, as well as he's the compiler of the Mahabharata. Sometimes it's said it is not sure who wrote the original epic Mahabharata, which is of 100,000 verses, in which Bhagavad Gita dwells with 700 verses. But because at one time, in India at one time, there is possibly that there was a group of people known as Vyasa, and they were scribes or compilers. It was a prestigious title to be a Vyasa. But in our Sampradaya, we consider Vyasa as a teacher, a living being, and in fact our prayers, it can be Narayana Samarambham, Vyasa Shankaram Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Parampara. Or it could be, Sadashiva Samarambham. So different sampradayas or educational lineages begin either with Vishnu, Narayana, or with Shiva. And we begin with Narayana, Vishnu. And then we agree that his extension, in fact, he is considered a minor avatar of Vishnu, Vyasa. Then from Vyasa it went to Shankaracharya in 8th century. Then to Asmadacharya, to our immediate teachers from Ayodhya, from where I come from, and myself, and we offer our gratefulness to this Guru Parampara. So it is said that he went into his dhyanam or deep meditation, and he came out with spontaneously, apaurishye, he came out with 10 million shlokas or verses, of which 100,000 became the Mahabharata, of which 700 became the Bhagavad Gita, of which the 84 is the Adi Bhagavad Gita by my great-grandfather. So Vyasa is known to have, compiled the Vedas, because the Vedas were North India, South India, East, West, they were all living orally in different sampradayas. And so he had the ability to collect them, compile them, edit them into first 3 books, and then the 4th one came. So Rig, Sam, Yajur, and Atharva was later. And he is also said to have composed the 18 Puranas. Puranas are neither history, they're not history. They are not, I don't even know if they're mythology. They're definitely awakening stories for the common person. Because I'm sure when Vyasa compiled the Vedas, it was, elite can understand the Vedas, intellectual elites. So the Purans were for the common person. Okay? So they are living stories, I would say. There is another Brahma Sutra, which one Rishi Badrayan is supposed to have composed, which we believe. But some say that Vyasacharya composed that also. So the Upanishads, which are the last portion of the Vedas, the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita. Okay? 700 verses. These three are considered Prasthanatraya, or the main classic tradition teaching Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. These are three main bodies, okay? And Mahabharata itself, the story of 100,000 verses, and Ramayana, which is the story of the prince of Ayodhya and how he overcame the evil king Ravana and established the victory of good over evil. These two stories, they are spiritual teachings, spiritual stories with deep philosophy. They are considered smriti, or what is recalled, as well as itihasa. They carry semi-historical value. But the Bhagavad Gita, which is contained inside the Mahabharata, is considered an original shruti, which means this is not history, this is not a story, this is the living teaching originally transferred to the rishis, which appeared to the rishis from the Lord within, in a sahaj way, in a natural way, without effort. Okay, are you understanding? So where does this Bhagavad Gita live? Okay, so I mentioned that there are 18 Purans. Okay, of which the third Puran is known as the Brahma Puran. Okay, in the Brahma Puran, somewhere in the middle section, 100,000 verses of the Mahabharata lives. Okay, the Mahabharata is divided into 18 sections called Parvas. Parva. And in the 6th Parva, which is called Bhishma Parva, from chapter 25 to 42, these 700 verses live. So it actually has a location. Okay, and this is only the 700 verses. Okay, so this is important. It's important to know, hey, where does this come from? Because in a Vedic school such as ours, we only study what is the authentic Shastra or the authentic scriptures. And so therefore Bhagavad Gita is as authentic as you can get here right now. So I wanted to share with you, and this is not original, and this is just from my exploring the World Wide Web, but I wanted to share with you some of the comments of great Mahapurushas or great beings who have said a few words about Bhagavad Gita. Would you be open to receiving that? Have you heard of Albert Einstein? So he says, when I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous. Mahatma Gandhi, do you know him? When doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me, and I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meaning from it every day. Have you heard of Henry David Thoreau? Okay. Am I pronouncing his name correctly? Yes. In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. In comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. Have you heard of Sri Aurobindo? He says, the Bhagavad Gita is a true scripture of the human race, a living creation rather than a book, with a new message for every age and a new meaning for every civilization. Have you heard of Hermann Hesse? Have you read his book, The Siddhartha? Otherwise you must. The marvel of the Bhagavad Gita is its truly beautiful revelation of life's wisdom, which enables philosophy to blossom into religion. Have you heard of Ralph Waldo Emerson? You must have. I owed a magnificent day to the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first of books. It was as if an empire spoke to us. Nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence, which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us today. Have you heard of Rudolf Steiner, Waldorf school people? Okay. He writes, in order to approach a creation as sublime as the Bhagavad Gita, with full understanding, as sublime as the Bhagavad Gita, with full understanding, it is necessary to attune our soul to it. And finally, have you heard of Aldous Huxley? Hopefully. The Bhagavad Gita is the most systematic statement of spiritual evolution, of enduring value to mankind. It is one of the most clear and comprehensive summaries of perennial philosophy ever revealed. Hence, its enduring value is subject not only to India, but to all of humanity. I could go on, but I wanted to share these because I have followed these great people in their different work, and I have great respect for what they bring to humanity and to human civilization. And I feel thrilled that here at Vedika, we are going to be studying this Bhagavad Gita, not only for 2 more classes, but for perhaps the rest of my lifetime, because we're going to take it up. And if you do decide to study further, all you have to do is to join an online group where I shall be teaching you on a monthly basis and going through the shlokas. If you are looking for a spiritual path that takes you home to you and reveals your inner guru and reveals to you that you are not different from God, and this is not a God that looks a certain way, dresses a certain way, talks a certain way, but that absolute reality, then this is the teaching for you. If you are looking to expand your intellect and let it help you and navigate your life, then this is the teaching for you. Because it is not a samvada or a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, but it is between the Sadguru Krishna and you, your soul. So this is very, very important for you, to remember that. So I am inviting you all on a spiritual journey. Many of you students have already written to me how you're looking forward to the ongoing diligent study. I want to tell you that in India nowadays, it has become common to memorize the Vedas, to memorize the Gita, to memorize the shlokas and just chant them without living them. But the sampradaya, not everywhere, but it's becoming common, let's just say. But the deeper sampradayas, and there are still some sampradayas still alive, to remind us that this knowledge has to be lived, it has to be contemplated, and allow it to bless your relationship with your mother-in-law, allow it to bless you in your relationship with your cousins, with your boss, with your neighbor, with your own self, and then with God. So therefore, I teach a more psychological and deeper interpretation of it. I'm not in a rush. I don't know how long my soul will dwell in this body, but I can say that I'm committed to teaching it. And if more of you show committed, if I find Arjunas, I can even teach more times a month. Who doesn't want to teach and learn Bhagavad Gita? Do you think I only teach? Do you think I don't learn? Of course, we are all sitting at the feet of the great Lord Krishna, Jagat Guru, and we are learning from him. So every time I learn, I feel like my hair on my skin rises when I read Bhagavad Gita. I feel like my breath has become different as I'm teaching the Bhagavad Gita. And every day I read the Bhagavad Gita. Every day, my students know that. So this is a living document. And because the Adi Bhagavad Gita is my family's main document, and I talked about it in my last class, which is on YouTube, you will know the history of the Adi Bhagavad Gita too, which is amazing. This knowledge has been a way of our life, and we are all battling our inner Duryodhanas. And then it's not enough to be goody two-shoes Arjuna. It is time to have an awakened Arjuna, an Arjuna who understands how to hold that goodness and carry it through and not collapse. And to connect that goodness with godliness. And then not to just find the God outside, but then within. And then let this whole drama dissolve. So it is a great teaching, a great science. So as you come along on this journey with me, what are you going to bring in your backpacks? Tell me. Water? Well, let it be hot water, okay? I would like you to bring with you Shraddha. You know, Shraddha is a Sanskrit word. When you come to me and Bhagavad Gita, be aware that there will be the death and destruction of some Duryodhanas within you, some old attachments, some old belief systems that don't serve you. And as you practice some of this learning, as it comes back to you and then you practice it, you shall have more and more trust and faith in this. But at least when you start, bring a functional faith. Start with that. And then let Bhagavad Gita earn your faith all the way. Just bring an open-mindedness to it. The Hindus are an envious lot because this is their religious book. They are very lucky. This is the book that the Hindus recite every day. Many live it. It is their highest value system. But you can see, and you shall find out, that this is not just a Hindu granth. This is humanity's granth, humanity's scripture, because it teaches us how to really enjoy our humanhood and how to really make choices that resound through this universe, you know. So, so if you're coming with me, come with Shraddha, come with joy, come with new enthusiasm, come with utsaha, you know, prasannata. Prasanna is a state. Prasanna atma. You know, prasanna, that word, it's a happy within yourself state. Like the cat got the cream and now she's smiling. So I want you to come with prasanna chitta. And you might already be engaged in battles. So you don't have to say, Shunyaji, can I talk to you for 5 minutes about a certain battle? Remember, it's all in suspended animation. All the battles have gone to the margins. They're all just like, you know, figures of wax. While you change your conditioning and understanding, and you break open that small cast of sorrow and fear, and you grow and grow and grow. And then you come back to animation, and you know how to deal with it, right? So this is the beauty of it. So you have an opportunity to descend deep into yourself. You're going on a 5 to 10,000 year old timeless perennial journey. I experience joy in the thought of teaching it to you. So you're welcome. And thank you so much. So every time I open the Bhagavad Gita at night, I would have been leading my empirical journey to the best of my awakened self. And then just when I'm about to go to bed, I read one verse and my lid pops open. And I become so big. I'm bigger than my house, bigger than the planet, bigger than the universe. My consciousness is huge. And then I put little Shunya to bed. And I look after the world. You know, this Bhagavad Gita is a great srota, a channel into the divine. So bring on anything Duryodhana in you, lay it on the table. Bring on your Arjuna in you, lay it on the table, and let Krishna do his work. And that's how it is. Okay, enough of magical talk. Let's get real. Tattvamasi, you are that. We always end with a beautiful mantra, which we shall go line by line, because I want the new students to learn it. So the old students should not chant with me. Wait for me to chant, then you chant, okay? So I will chant, then you chant. Okay? And we'll say Om once together. Asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Om Shri Krishna Vande, Shri Krishna Vande Jagat Guru. So we are recognizing Krishna as a teacher for all beings in various stages of transformation. Even that original Duryodhana lost somewhere, because we all need the teacher to teach us how to live, how to grow, how to thrive, and how to recognize our own true self. So we are grateful to him. Thank you for joining me tonight.